good afternoon. This is the closing keynote of the event. So thank you very much. God, these lights are bright. Thank you very much for attending and for listening to me for the next sort of half an hour or so. I know most of the audience is French, and I feel blessed that most French people speak English, but that doesn't work the other way around. So I will speak slowly and I will speak in English, and I hope that's okay for the audience. So my name's Mike Wyatt. I work for Google, and I look after Chrome and Android across EMEA. So I have a go-to-market team that basically distribute our solutions across the whole of EMEA. And I feel very blessed to be here and very privileged to be speaking to you today for about half an hour, 40 minutes, so thank you very much. And I was thinking at the weekend when I was invited to do this closing keynote, I was thinking, what can I talk about? What would be of interest to an audience of professional IT people, of IT professionals? And I thought what could be quite interesting would be the story of Google. Google's 18 years old. We had our 18-year birthday last year. We're 19 years old this year. And I thought it'd be quite interesting to articulate how Google's grown over that short period of time, because there might be some good parallels between what we've had to achieve and predict and build. That might be a good parallel to what you're trying to achieve, predict and build as well. So I was going to go through that a little bit. But the first thing I'd like to say is just how incredible everything's moving, the speed at which everything is moving, the speed at which technology and innovation is moving is actually quite frightening. It's also, we're quite blasé about it as well. So if I explain that this way, I've got two children. I've got an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old daughter. And I went to a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and an uncle turned up, an old relative who I hadn't seen for a long time, and he came up to me and he said, "I can't believe how your children have changed. It's incredible." And I thought, well, no, actually, they haven't, because I'm around them all the time. I've seen them grow from 0 to 18, so I actually didn't think they'd changed that much. And then that weekend, my wife and I went back and looked at some photographs as when they were 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds, and sure enough, they have actually changed. But because you're around them all the time, the same that we're around technology all the time, actually, we take it for granted, and we don't think it's moved that fast. So with that, I just want to tell you a little story which sort of highlights just how fast it has moved, first of all. So this guy, very famous German, Heinrich Hertz, he basically proved Maxwell's theory of magnetic waves. So he was the guy that's given us electromagnetic waves, basically. If it wasn't for this guy, we wouldn't have radio, television, transistors, video, mobility, everything that we live and breathe every day just wouldn't exist if it wasn't for this guy. He's actually so famous, he has a crater named after him on the dark side of the moon. You can go and Google that. That's actually true. And interestingly, the reason I put this guy up on the slide is because he had absolutely no idea where this technology was going. Admittedly, this was 130 odd years ago. But yeah, he had no idea of the practical applications around electromagnetic waves. How far we've moved since that. That's not more than about 100 years ago. It's pretty phenomenal just how quickly we've moved. And I just wanted to tell you a little personal story around this. So this is my father. He's 86. I'm really pleased that he's still with us. He lives in a little town in England called Wokingham. He's there in his mayoral regalia. He used to be mayor, which I'm quite proud of. And his best friend is a lady called Elsie. And Elsie is 103 years of age. She was born, bred, and brought up in this Queen Anne house in Wokingham. So she's lived there all her life. So you can imagine the things she's seen. She walked out of her front door and saw the first aeroplane fly over the town. She looked through her next door neighbour's front door window to see the first black and white television. She saw the Second World War, and you just imagine the technological advances that this lady has seen. And we go around there every 3 months or so, and she cooks us a lovely meal on a Friday night every 3 months. Actually, she's got an amazing wine cellar. She's got an 80-year-old wine cellar, and she gives me the rusty key and allows me to go and pick a bottle of wine. That's not the reason I go, but that's actually quite a good incentive for me to keep going there. And this one evening, we were sat around the table, and we were drinking a glass of wine and having some dinner, and my phone beeped. Very rude. Didn't have my phone turned off. I have now. And my mobile device beeped. And she said, "Oh, what's that?" She said, sometimes I sit in my front room and I watch people walk past in the street. And I see them like this. mainly young people, and I wonder what it is they're looking at, what's so enthralling, what's addicting these people to these devices. And I spent the next 25, 30 minutes just explaining to her what this thing did. It took me that long, and I didn't cover everything. I mean, you try and explain to a 103-year-old what VR is, you could spend weeks doing it, right? And I explained to her what it did, all these things that it did. Not only was it a camera and a radio and all the obvious things that we've been used to for the last 10, 15 years, but all the other stuff as well. The fact that you can watch any film that's ever been made in the history of filmmaking. You can listen to any music track that's ever been created for the last 50, 60 years. And it went on and on and on. And she stopped me, and she picked it up, and she looked at it, and she looked around, and you can see she was looking for wires and any tricks. And she said to me, in 1923, her father took her to see Houdini in New York, and it was one of his last performances before he passed away. And she said to me, and it still gives me shackles down the back of my neck, she said, that was the first time I saw true magic. And she picked this up and she said, this was the second time in my life that I've seen true magic. It's a true story, and it made me realise that although I work for Google and I'm entrenched in this stuff every single day, how much we take it for granted. So I just wanted to open the presentation by explaining that actually we shouldn't take it for granted. And actually, she's 103 years of age. If I live till I'm 103 years of age, which is very doubtful, just looking at my diet, but if I did, what would my friend or my grandchild or my child, what would they be showing me in 100 years' time? No one in this room has any idea. Even I don't have any idea. Even the CEO of Google doesn't have any idea. Nobody has any idea. So I just wanted to start that off to talk about the fact that none of that would happen, none of these things on this slide would happen if there wasn't a thing called a cloud. Because everything here is driven by the cloud. You can see where my presentation is starting to go now. Google, cloud. So that's great, talking about an old lady. What about us in business? Well, in 2010, we're going through a really, and I think you've heard about this from some other speakers over the last couple of days, but we're going through this digital transformation. And it's actually quite hard to keep up with it because so many things are changing so quickly. You know, we used to have data on premise, we used to have PCs on desks. I'm older than most of you in the room, so I actually used to have card boxes. I don't know if anyone remembers card boxes, way before email. We had to have productivity tools that were built that used local storage, that had servers locally in a room that were managed by people. So IT had to focus on where things computed, where things actually sat, the boxes and where they actually sat. But going forward, we're now talking about things going in the cloud. We're talking about data going in the cloud. We're talking about the ability to query and search on that data and find new insights from that data. We're talking about things like machine learning, getting insights out of the data that we're using, collaborating via video and via mobile devices, cloud-based productivity. So IT is now changing actually the way we compute, and IT is actually changing the way that we evolve as companies. And as I said before, it's pretty scary. Now let's talk a little bit about Google, because Google's been on this journey and Google continues to be on this journey. And I don't know if you know this, but we've got 8 products now, 8 specific Google solutions with over 1 billion users. And I'm not saying that to impress you, I'm just saying that to impress upon you that over the last 18 years, we've had to predict what's coming. We've had to build the infrastructure and build all the tools to enable this huge growth to be successful. And we've had to look at ways of enhancing this usability and enhancing the things that we give to our users to make it even better, to ensure that they stay with us on the Google journey. And what I want to do today is I just want to spend about 15, 20 minutes explaining to you exactly how we went on this journey. And it's really sat down by 3 pillars. So first of all, we had to, in order to, you know, if you think of us, we were a search engine company, okay? So, you know, Larry, in his garage, he came up with a search engine. And on that search engine, 18 years ago, we had, in 1998, we had 3.8 million searches in the first year. Sounds incredible. We now have over 3 trillion. So how do you build a search engine that can go from 3 million to 3 trillion? And how do you build it quickly and scalably and securely and also make it even better for your users to ensure that people carry on using it? So the first thing you've got to do, and I'm going to run through this in a bit of detail, first thing you've got to do is you've got to build the infrastructure that hosts all of this stuff. And it has to be scalable for the future because, although you might have 1 billion users on it, today, in 4 years' time, you might have 3-4 billion users on it. So it needs to be really, really scalable. Within all of that, you also have a huge amount of data. What do you do with that data? How do you use that data to make the services for your users even better? And then on the back of that, how do you allow your users to access all this stuff? Because they're accessing search engines and all of these products and solutions from different devices in different places all over the world. So first thing I want to drill down into a little bit more is infrastructure. I don't know if you know this, but it's not a small thing. We actually own about 30% of the global internet traffic at the moment. So we have to believe that global scale of a network is paramount to what we do. And it's a race. We're not the only ones doing this. There are lots of providers out there that are trying to do the same thing or are doing the same thing in building their cloud infrastructure. So we have points of presence in lots of different countries. So the first thing we had to ensure was that no matter where you were in the country consuming our products and our solutions, that they were scalable, successful, and you got a good experience from it. And in fact, as we go forward, we realised that in Europe, for example, in Germany especially, German companies didn't necessarily like a global network. German companies would much rather prefer, and a lot of European companies would much rather prefer a local network. So therefore, we had to build local points of presence, and we're actually opening a new data center every month this year in Europe, which is to really build on and ensure that our enterprise growth can be successful. And in order to do that, we had to have local points of presence in Europe. So that's one thing. So we've got a really big network. We can build different data centers in different countries. It can be global. And in fact, it's something that you shouldn't really have to care about. It should work. It should be 99.99% uptime. It should just be there all the time for you as a consumer. You don't need to worry about things not working. And we even go to the extent where we were going to use third-party companies to lay these cables. So we just laid a cable from Asia to the US, and we were going to use third-party ships to do this. And we didn't feel that A, the cables were strong enough, and B, the shipping companies that we were outsourcing to were particularly doing a grand job. We couldn't, I guess, really trust them to do a fantastic job. So we bought our own ship. And we designed our own cable to lay across the bottom of the ocean. Again, I'm not trying to impress you. I'm just trying to say that if you're going to own your own network, you actually have to own everything in order for it to be really successful and really, really secure. And what this does is this enables our customers to scale very, very quickly. Some of you may have heard of this company, Snapchat. This was started up by 2 Stanford students who wanted to create a photo messaging app in 2011. And surprise, surprise, it became very, very successful very, very quickly. And they were able to use something called the Google App Engine and our underlying infrastructure to build and cope with this unprecedented demand so that it was available for more and more users. And it's actually higher than that now, but they're running something like 750 million photos and videos a day. And both of my children contribute to that quite highly. But, if you think about this 5-10 years ago, if you came up with an application that was potentially going to be really successful, there was just no infrastructure there. Going back to the old lady's comment, there was nothing behind this that would enable you to launch and become successful to millions and millions of users. And not only to be successful and launch it, but also to enhance it and to give your users more and more productivity and more solutions off of the back of it. So again, just a real-life example of how the infrastructure really helps our customers build and helps you consume products and services as well. So that's the infrastructure. So we've got this big search engine, and we've got, with our consumers' permission, we've got all of this data, and we've got masses and masses of data. There's no point in having masses and masses of data if you can't do something intelligent with it, if it doesn't help you evolve and make the product even better going forward. So the next thing we looked at is, okay, we built the infrastructure. We have all the data centers, we have all the cables laid, we own the ships, that's really great. We have customers now on the back of it. But what about, how can we make it better? How can we make it more user-friendly? How can we do something with all of this data that we're using? And with something called machine learning and artificial intelligence, which I'll go on to next, the world really starts to get exciting. So if you look at enterprise data today, 90% of it is what we call unstructured, which basically means that It's sat on databases somewhere. It's probably not talking to any other systems. It may be sat on a server somewhere. But if you put something like cloud machine learning into the back of that data, actually using that data with algorithms, then you can get some really, really remarkable results out of it. And in fact, Sundar, who's our CEO, who talks a lot about the singularity about machines and humans coming together, which is another subject, a bit more science fiction. But he really does see that artificial intelligence opens up huge opportunities for everybody, for IT, enterprises and users going forward. So, what is machine learning? It's quite complicated. Actually, I haven't got a PhD, so I can't describe it very well. I'm not a professor, so I can't describe it very well. But basically, it's the underlying concept. So, you know, you have a huge amount of data. So think about a search engine or think about a Snapchat or a Spotify. Using really, really clever algorithms, you can look at that data, understand that data, get the data to give you insights that make that data even more valuable. And that's really one of the, you know, on top of the infrastructure, this is really our next step that we put into Google to try and work out how we can make this data really, really successful and really work for us and work for our customers. And I'm going to give you some examples of this. Has anyone heard of Google Home? It's quite a new product. Absolutely nobody. Good marketing job there for our guys. I'm just going to show you a little video which shows you how artificial intelligence, 'cause it's all very well me talking about machine learning and artificial intelligence, but it's much nicer when you see it in real life and what it can physically do for you. So just want to show you a quick video here, so cue video on Google Home.
Okay, Google, turn on the hall lights.
Okay, Google, turn up the music.
Okay, Google, what's a good substitute for cardamom?
Mix together equal parts cinnamon and nutmeg.
Okay, Google, what sound does a whale make?
Okay, Google, what's the weather?
Two babies dream.
How do you say nice to meet you in Spanish?
Encantada de conocerte.
Okay, Google, dim the lights.
So, consumer product, admittedly, but just a nice application to show you as to how, you know, the things that the information that you're using and gathering and putting into that device makes the experience that you have in your home really, really awesome. And you can now control Internet of Things, you can control all sorts of different things. It's going to learn your habits, it's going to learn when you're in a certain room with a certain light on and what music you like and so forth. It's just one application of how machine learning and artificial intelligence can really help us day to day in our day-to-day lives. Another good example of that is the personal assistant. So this has just launched on Pixels, which is Google's own mobile devices. It's going to launch on 10 OEMs. That was just shown at a Mobile World Congress. There's going to be another 10 OEM devices coming out with this. And it's again, using artificial intelligence, using the data that you use on your device. It's giving you really useful and predictable outcomes. So you can ask it different questions. You've probably seen this on other devices as well. The difference with this is it's absolutely remarkable how accurate it is and how it works. So again, using all that data behind the device, but giving you a really predictable and a really useful outcome on your mobile device. Just one example of how we've built an API and put that into real action. So I work at Google and I use G Suite. It used to be called Google Apps. So I use a productivity suite. And over the last couple of years, as I've been using that, I've realized that things are starting to get more intelligent. I'm able to search more effectively. I'm able to look at my last interaction with somebody and it will show me the whole history. It will show me the last time I had a video conference, the last time I had an email, the last time I had a calendar event. And all of this stuff is magically happening in the background and I didn't really realize it. But actually it's all using machine learning and it's learning from what I do on a day-to-day basis to make me more productive. In my inbox, in my calendar, with my new Hangouts, with my video experience, with our storage experience, with Team Drives, machine learning, artificial intelligence is built into all of this to make the data more useful for me. So just some examples there of how it physically works in real life. This is a great one. I don't know if anyone's seen Google Translate. Google Translate uses our Translate API, and it's currently available in 90 languages using text, 37 languages using photographs, so you can actually put your mobile device up to the word that you want to translate, take a photograph of it and it will translate it. But recently what we brought out is real-time video, which is real artificial intelligence. So you can literally go up to a street sign in Paris, because I don't speak French, and I can, actually have my video camera going and it will in real time translate it for me. I didn't do a live demo today, because live demos normally go wrong in front of audiences, so I just thought I'd show you a slide. But if you get a chance, I don't know if anyone's used it, but if you haven't, go and use it, because it is an absolutely brilliant, really brilliant product, and does exactly what it says on the tin, as they say in England. So again, I talked to you about the infrastructure, and I talked about how Snapchat's use that. But how do customers use all of this in the real life? And there's anyone use Spotify in the audience? Sorry, I'll say that again. Anyone not use Spotify in the audience? One hand, okay. So you might have noticed if you use Spotify, if you have your own playlists, you might have noticed at the end of the playlist that now it gives you recommended songs, which spookily are very much like the music that you enjoy. Has anyone seen that? It's literally came out about a month ago. So you have a playlist, you're listening to all of your prog rock or whatever it is you might be into, and you'll notice that it will actually give you and predict and give you suggestions for songs that you might like. And it's incredible. I like music of the 1980s. I'm a little bit older than most of you. And it's amazing how some of these songs have been shown to me in my Spotify account that I've completely forgotten about. And it's really, really nice for nostalgia. So, yeah, just a really good example. Again, using our infrastructure, because they've got about 80 million users now, but really using the Google Cloud platform to get new data insights, which historically, if you had an old database, could have taken you hours or weeks to get. Now it's taking them seconds or literally minutes. So a really, really good example of a real-life customer. We also use all of this internally, actually. I mentioned our data centers, and I mentioned that we had so many data centers globally. That's great news, but data centers are estimated to use between 2 and 3% of the world's global greenhouse emissions, which is not good. So all of the electricity that the data centers are using are having a detrimental effect on the environment. So we worked with a company called DeepMind. You may have heard of DeepMind's owned by Google, with our data center intelligence people, and we had a look at this, and we decided to use all the data, and we wrote an algorithm to look at all of this data to improve the efficiency of our data centers. And using a combination of deep learning, artificial intelligence, and something called reinforcement learning, we've now demonstrated a 40% reduction in energy usage across all of our data centers. So again, a real life example of how using the data intelligently can actually I won't say save the planet, because that sounds a little bit corny, but can really make data centers more efficient going forward. So, the last sort of pillar in the three is connected to the cloud. Because it's all very well having a fantastic infrastructure that's very scalable and very clean and economically friendly. It's all very well having, learning from your data and doing artificial intelligence on the back of it, so you can have really funky products like Google Home and artificial intelligence, which enables people like Spotify to get even better for their, create even a better experience for their consumers. But what about how people consume all of this stuff? There's 7.5 billion people on the planet now, 3.5 billion estimated are on the internet, 2.2 billion people are on smartphones. So that's a lot of smartphones. That's a lot of people now and in the future consuming all of these products and all of these services in different places on different devices. So the next thing we had to look at internally in Google was, okay, we've got a great set of tools, we've got a great infrastructure to build on it. How do we get all of this information out to all of our users? And I'm talking about devices. So devices, again, really, really important for Google and important globally as well. And you probably know most of this stuff. So for example, we had a look at, the first thing we had a look at was sort of a browser experience. So, a few years ago, you had Internet Explorer, you had Firefox, and people were saying to Google, why would you want another Why would you want another browser? So we had a look at that around HTML5, and we decided to bring out Chrome a few years back, and we've now got 55% market share on the Chrome. And then we designed, we thought, well, couldn't you just have an online experience and an online laptop, if you like, that just works on HTML5 and is connected all the time? So we brought out Chromebooks, which are now outselling Apple Macs, Apple MacBook Pros, interestingly enough, globally. And we carried on developing and bringing out new products. And on the back of Chrome, we bring out Chrome boxes and Chrome bits, which allow you to do digital signage and all other types of solutions. And then we looked at mobility, and as you know, we bought Android about 8 years ago, and we've been developing Android, which I'll come on to a little bit later. We've been developing Android over the last sort of 7 or 8 years, so that it's now really a good enterprise-ready solution. And this is primarily a mobile event, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that in a moment. But yeah, we wanted to enable all of these devices to work really, really effectively with all of this cloud infrastructure. So, you know, right from Chromebooks to Android devices, tablets, wearables, through to augmented reality and Google Daydream, which is our new VR solution, which just came out, and beacons. We really wanted to work together with our consumers to make sure that all of this information was really distributable and readable in the best way and best format possible. And we really have 3 pillars around this. And this is a bit of a Google mantra, really. We really want mobility to be ubiquitous. We want it to be available for absolutely everybody. And what I mean by that is we want to work with, well, we now work with over 200 OEMs, mobile device manufacturers, to enable the production of devices at completely different price points. So you can buy an Android device in India for $30. You can buy a Samsung, what will be an S8, for $700-800. So we ensured that we had a whole plethora of devices at every single price point so that we can make mobile technology available for everybody, so that all of this great artificial learning, artificial intelligence and artificial learning will be available for everybody. We then started to look at the enterprise market, which I'll come on to a little bit later, because, you know, we've got 1.4 billion Android devices out there, and that's rising at 1.5 million a week at the moment, so it's growing really, really quickly. But we realised that actually iOS still had 85% market share in the enterprise, and yet Android's the most successful mobile operating platform on the planet. So there was a real disjoint there. So we decided to start looking at productivity on mobile devices to see how we could make Android more of an enterprise device, which I'll come on to in a moment. And then it wasn't just about mobile phones, it wasn't just about Chromebooks and making Android ready for the enterprise. It was also the next stage in mobility. So, for example, you know, how can you use mobility in your car with Android Auto? How could you use it? How can you use it as a wearable with Android Wear? How could you use it for VR, for Daydream? How could you use it for warehouse packers or postal workers? Or how could you set up beacons in a retail establishment? So mobility is great, but we've decided to take it on to the next level to really try and understand what the next applications are for mobility across the planet. So we do all that really, really well. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Android, because this is something that Philippe and Nadia, you might have seen our stand on the show earlier on today. But we launched about 2 years ago something called Android Enterprise. And we realized that Android was historically seen in the market as maybe not as secure as iOS, which is why iOS have been so successful, and why they've got such a large, you know, nearly 85% market share across the globe in the enterprise. So we had a look at Android and we thought, what is this historic perception? Because we've got 1.5 billion users on there. So actually, is it really insecure? What is it that enterprises want in order to deliver Android into the enterprises? And we went and talked to lots and lots of really large companies to try and understand why they weren't deploying Android. And most of them said, actually, we'd really like to deploy Android because if you look at BYOD, a lot of our users actually want to bring in Android devices. They really like Android devices. They might be slightly cheaper, there's more of a choice, there's more OEMs, and they're now comparable with Apple devices as well. So we had a really long, hard look at this, and along with 250 engineers who are based in London, we decided to enhance and build on the Android platform. And as a result of that, we worked with all of our major partners. Most of them here are actually Mobile Iron, BlackBerry, SOTI, AirWatch, Microsoft. We worked with all of the really big EMM partners, the partners who manage mobile devices out there. And we decided to give them a whole set of APIs. And these APIs allow EMMs to develop and launch solutions for you which make Android secure and enterprise friendly. So everything from BYOD to corporately owned to kiosk mode. There's a whole batch of different solutions that now sit on the Android enterprise platform. And then we thought one of the things that we needed to solve was how we get applications in an enterprise to the device as well. Because historically, you've had to do something like app wrapping, which is quite a nasty way of getting, not nasty, quite a time-intensive way of getting applications to a device. So we thought, well, we have this thing called a Play Store with millions of apps in it and billions of users. And we thought, is there any way that we could use the Play Store securely for the enterprise? So the first solution we brought out on the Android enterprise platform was something called a work profile, where you can actually split between your personal applications and your work applications on one device. So, for example, for a BYOD rollout, you could allow people to bring their own devices into the workplace, but you as an enterprise with your EMM would manage that work profile. And within that work profile, which is completely separate from the consumer part of the phone, you'd have your own enterprise applications in it. Managed by you, blacklisted and whitelisted by you, and brought down from your own Play Store. So you'd have your own work enterprise Play Store, which is completely separate from the consumer Play Store, keeping them all nice and separate. So yeah, again, just one really good example of how we, listened to the market and really brought a solution out to try and enable our users really to deploy Android into the enterprise, because we feel that's something that was missing before. So, there's one piece I've missed out of all of this. So if you look at those three buckets, so I talked about infrastructure, I talked about cloud, I talked about the different solutions that use the data, but there's no point any of this being relevant to anyone in the audience unless it's secure. You have no idea how important security is to Google. Imagine if we had a security breach. 1.5 billion users on Android phones. Imagine if there was a security breach in our Play Store. Imagine if there was a security breach for our G Suite with all of our hundreds of really large customers. People like Orshan, they've got 200,000 people using G Suite, and really large companies using our enterprise solutions. Yeah, we tend to take security very, 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 very important. I don't want to go through this slide in too much detail, but we have about 700 security engineers. We abide by all of the latest ISO standards, and there's a 24/7 watch on there. If you look at the Android Play Store, for example, we're actually the world's largest antivirus checker. Don't know if anyone knew that. I learned that last week from our security CSO. So we actually check for antivirus more than any other antivirus vendor. In fact, more than most of them put together, which is quite an interesting stat. So, I've got to do a bit of selling now. I have a good audience in front of me. I thought I'd do a bit of selling. The really good news about this presentation is that all of the innovation and the journey that Google's been on over the last 18 years, all of this is now available to you. So we've grown our enterprise team from a couple of thousand 3 years ago to now 14,500. So we've got 14,500 enterprise engineers, salespeople, product managers, people building all of this cloud stuff to make it consumable for enterprise. And all of our cloud products and all of our solutions are now on a pay-as-you-go basis, so you literally pay as you use. So we allow you to scale. If you look at Snapchat, if you look at Spotify, we allow you to grow at the speed which is right for you and at the speed which you can pay for, depending on how large you grow and at what speed you grow at. So a whole plethora of different offerings. And again, reliable, secure, and scale as well. So what about the future? I've talked about how we built what we've built, and I've talked about the fact that it's now open for everybody and available for everybody. I just want to tell you a little bit of story about the future. So in my spare time, I'm an artist. I don't get much spare time at Google, but sometimes on a Sunday I get a chance to draw. And about 3 or 4 months ago, there was an email that went around Google from the Google Cultural Institute, which interestingly enough is in Paris. It would be, wouldn't it? The Culture Institute has to sit in Paris because that's where all the culture is. I hope there's no non-French people in the audience apart from me. That's good. This email came out and it said we're just thinking about acquiring this company called Tiltbrush, and we're looking for people with some type of artistic ability to come and try out the product and what we call at Google dog food the product, which basically means try it out and give the guys building the product ideas as to how it can be even better. And I was invited to the Google Institute in Paris, and I was given this thing called Tiltbrush. virtual reality. And you're given a helmet. I was sat in a room probably about the size of a squash court, and it enables you to, everyone know Adobe Illustrator? Imagine Adobe Illustrator in a virtual space. So it enables you to draw anything you want in a 3D space in front of you, and you can walk around it and up and down. And it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. First of all, I love virtual reality. I think it's going to be a big part of our future, or certainly our children's future going forward. But this thing blew my mind. I was on it for about 3 hours, and then the lady tapped me on the shoulder and she said, "I think you should maybe take that helmet off because there's all sweat coming down your face because I've been on it for so long." So we decided to buy the company. So Tiltbrush VR is now a Google company, and that was built by a very small team and a very innovative entrepreneurs. I think 4 or 5 guys and a couple of girls built that literally in their garage, and we're now integrating that into Google Daydream going forward. You've heard about driverless cars. Another good example of how Google's innovating. In fact, there's a lot of press around driverless cars at the moment, and what that means to the future of vehicles. Project Loon you may have heard of, where Larry went to India a couple of years ago and realised that, and Africa a couple of years ago, and realised that there wasn't a lot of internet coverage in those areas. And why shouldn't there be? Why shouldn't everybody have internet access? So we thought, well, maybe we could use weather balloons. If we put weather balloons up into the stratosphere and use those to bounce internet signals down, maybe we could open up internet access. Again, another project that's really, really popular here at Google. So it's all about innovation. So what we're trying to achieve at Google is for you to really forget about the stuff that underpins the ideas and the creativity that you and your teams have. Because the main reason why everything has grown so quickly in technology so far up to this point is because of creativity and innovation. A group of very, very smart people, or not necessarily smart people, but clever people, building things for the future, having a vision and building things for the future. What you don't want to do is you don't want to get bogged down by technology. You just want to have stuff that works, so that if you build a bit of code, you can just scale it massively to a lot of people very, very quickly, for example. And in fact, Eric Schmidt, our chairman, this is really his philosophy across the whole of Google. You know, it's all about small teams of people not being held back by technology, but being allowed to do what they want to do at the speed and pace that they want to do it. And this is really built into Google's culture. And it's one of the things that I love about Google, but it's also one of the things that I had to learn very quickly when I joined Google 3 years ago from a startup, because I'm 52 years of age this year, and I looked around Google and I realized that the company's full of children, full of kids, full of really, really clever entrepreneurial kids that have just come out. It's not full of them, but full of really, really, very, very smart people, a lot smarter than me, who want to move very, very quickly. So I had to really relearn a lot of things myself, and I had to try and innovate internally within Google to grow my career. And I love it. And you find that everyone in Google has pretty much the same philosophy as you do. So, innovation can't be ordained. I'm just going to leave you with this thought. But we can create an environment with technology that's easy to use and palatable, that enables people to evolve organically. So it's quite a wordy slide. But basically what that means is that, going back to the lady at the beginning, the old 103-year-old lady, my dad's friend that I talked about, just the thing I want you to walk away with today is that don't forget that technology is the things that you can do with technology, and technology itself today is absolutely magical. It is the Harry Houdini of 2017. Because you can do whatever you want if you have the creativity and the passion. You now have the tools, the infrastructure, and the artificial intelligence, if you like, to enable you to do, for you and your teams, to do pretty much whatever it is that you've got inside your dreams, if you like. And I'm just going to show you one last demo. I'm leaving this to the end, so I hope it works, which shows you one of our APIs, because I said that all of this technology was available to everybody, and we have a whole section of APIs, so speech APIs, translation APIs, and we also have a vision API, which uses images. And we actually took a photograph outside of the event, and we're going to put that into our vision API just to see what results come out of it. So let's have a look, see if this works. Cue the other slide. So this is available for everyone to try, by the way, so you can go on and have a look at our Cloud Vision API. Pick a picture. So this is one that we took today. or at the event. So this is running artificial intelligence, and it gives you some fairly interesting outputs. So first of all, it looks at the people's faces, and it ranks in the best way possible with all of the information that it already has in its database. It ranks and picks out certain things. So there's obviously someone there that's really happy, someone that's not very happy. And if we go on to one of the other tabs, incredibly, it's picked up that it's in Monte Carlo. And it's picked up the advertising and the statistics. So what it's done is it's used artificial intelligence using that Vision API. It's looked at that picture, and we use this in YouTube and Google Photos and a lot of our products. Things like this are available to you today. All of these APIs are built and available for you today. So you can have all of our 18 years of experience, and you can launch things like this into your enterprise. This is just one example. So yeah, just wanted to leave you with that, really, a bit of a live demo, which went well, thank goodness. So thanks for listening. So my name's Mike Wyatt, work for Google, and I just want to leave you with that one point, that don't think of technology as if it's over, because we're literally just at the beginning. We're just at the cusp of what the future is going to hold. And I really believe that the technology, the infrastructure, and the cloud is going to enable us to get to places that we haven't even dreamt of yet. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.